The Secrets of Technology is brought to you by the StarQuest Production Network and is made possible by our many generous patrons. If you'd like to support the podcast, please visit sqpn.com/give. You're listening to The Secrets of Technology. Hi, I'm Dom Bettinelli, and you're listening to The Secrets of Technology, where we discuss the technology news that's important to you from a uniquely Catholic point of view. And joining me today on the panel are Victor Lambs. Hey, Victor.
Hi, Dom.
And Father Joseph Sund. Hey, Father.
Hi, Dom. Hi, Victor.
Hello.
And before we get into our program today, I want to tell you about another show on the StarQuest Network you're sure to enjoy called Jimmy Akin's Mysterious World. And you can find that wherever fine podcasts are found or at sqpn.com/mysterious. So I want to start off with some feedback that we've gotten on our recent episode titled Leaving LastPass. And this was some feedback we got in our Discord community, which you can find at sqpn.com/discord. And in our Secrets of Tech channel there, user Roman Inquirer wrote, I have some doubts over leaving LastPass. No, just hear me out for a sec. Yes, they had bad breaches. However, because of that, it seems likely they will try extra hard to enhance security and eliminate this possibility in the future. 2. Additionally, the breaches could have been the result of their being the main player in the password managing space. Biggest market share makes them the target of many more hackers to begin with. In other words, the same thing could happen to 1Password or Bitwarden if everyone suddenly moves to them. And then J-Dub joins in and said, I'm with you there, Roman Inquirer. There have been so many breaches, and it's a matter of time before every big password manager gets hit. So what do you guys think? Does he get a point?
I wouldn't want to explain away good cybersecurity practices by saying, well, if you're big, you're going to get hacked. And if you do get hacked, it just means you're going to be extra safe the next time. You know, it's kind of the fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me type thing. Yeah. And it's like Mark Twain said, put all your eggs in one basket and then watch that basket. Right. So if all your passwords are in a password manager basket, you have to trust that whoever is in charge of that is watching that basket.
I'm a little leery of the idea that, they'll try extra hard. I'm not sure what that means. I'm sure the people working there were already trying hard.
Yeah.
That's not how hacking works, right? It's not that they've been lax. It's that there was a hole in the security, right?
This kind of reminds me of, you had the Apple versus Microsoft argument of the insecurities of Windows versus Mac OS, and the fact that Mac OS rarely had viruses, right? And they said, well, it's just because Mac OS has a lower market share,
smaller
market share. And so that's why no one's doing it. They've made the same arguments against Linux. Remind you that the entire internet's ran by Linux.
Right, every server.
So I don't really put much to that argument. And so they're saying, well, it had a smaller market share, and that's why Mac OS was better. Instead of the fact that the executable file system was poorly designed and sustainable to viruses and errors. And so this has to do, and I don't want to get deep into the weeds, but LastPass and Bitwarden and 1Password's designs aren't all the same. You're kind of comparing apples and oranges to do that as well for security protocol there.
I mean, I'm looking at a list and this statistics that show the share of the password manager market, and LastPass was I don't know when this was as of, but it was at 21% in 2022, I think it says, and the next one was 1Password with 3.85%. And then there were a lot of others. So yeah, I mean, LastPass was the biggest guy on the block. I don't think that's why people go after it, because they're the biggest. I think they go after because there's a vulnerability. I don't think it has anything to do with big or small. I think it has to do with, does it have a vulnerability in it that I can get through? And so I don't think it's really a matter of being the main player. I mean, is it true? Like, because well, that was one of the assertions that were made. Everybody's got vulnerabilities. It's just a matter of whether the people are trying to find them or are motivated to find them. I mean, what do you think? Is it true that LastPass got caught just because there was more people banging on the door?
Well, it's like what's that? Was it Eugene Kaspersky who, when they had a big breach or something, said, "Okay, you want a completely safe, computer system, put it in a room and unplug it from everything, and then it will be completely safe."
Right.
And turn it off. Yeah.
I mean, that's my best ransomware protection, right? Is my hard drive that's backed up, unplugged, and locked in a safe. No, nothing's touching it.
So, I mean, the bottom line is, I think, is what Roman Inquirer is trying to say, and J-Dub probably with him, is I'm not leaving LastPass because there's no reason to. That this was this could have happened to anyone, and therefore it doesn't mean that LastPass is particularly bad. But my response was, it wasn't so much the fact of the breach, it was the way LastPass dealt with the breach, which was to cover up, minimize, and delay letting bad news get out. Agreed?
Yeah, and I'll just ask for his feedback 6 months later with their next breach that comes about. So
right, because it wasn't LastPass's first breach either. That's the thing. But yeah.
It's open, like just an honest question here. So I don't use a password manager, but I do turn on two-factor authentication using the authenticator apps and stuff. So at this point, it doesn't really bother me too much if my, password's stored in my browser and, I still flip over to the app to grab my little, token code and stuff. So are we getting to a point where that's more secure than having a password manager that, just passes passwords?
Well,
or is there some combination of the two? Is there a password manager that's integrated with an authenticator app that'll do both? Oh, there is? Okay.
I think most of them do it now. They have the one-time passwords. Like 1Password, you can put it in there. Yeah. Some folks, some cybersecurity folks say you shouldn't have your two-factor inside your password manager, because if the password manager gets breached, they've got both keys. I'm not as worried about such things. I'm not a high value target, and I'm not, and I have pretty secure password on my 1Password vault, all that sort of thing. So I'm not as worried about it. My balance between security and convenience has shifted toward more convenience in that case. But certainly, having two-factor really makes a big difference in that security. So even if you had, I think the big thing is really when we start moving to something like passkeys and biometric authentication and hardware passkey, which is, your phone being the authenticator and that sort of thing with your biometrics. That sort of stuff is really going to make this sort of thing less important. Like, because it's not going to be about storing an alphanumeric code somewhere that someone can get. It's going to be much more complex than that. All right. So, I mean, in the end, it's up to you and your decision and your balance between, like I said, security and convenience. And if you feel like you're secure enough at LastPass, I'm not going to tell you that you shouldn't, leave. But for those who do want to leave and they don't feel secure at LastPass anymore, that's why we recorded that episode, to give you your options. So
yep, I think even if he sticks around with LastPass, obviously still do your normal security steps, right?
Right.
Yes, they're still there. Make sure you go through LastPass. You're changing all your passwords. You're changing your master password to your vault and all of that after that breach. And honestly, if I'm going to keep using them, I might be regularly doing my master password every few months that I'm changing that with LastPass, given their track record.
Right.
Even though with most password managers, you probably should be doing that anyway, too. So.
Right. Yeah. The problem is that master password is so good that changing it and remembering it every time is such a pain. But you only have to change it in one place, and that's the big benefit of that.
Under your keyboard, right?
Yeah, that's right. You keep mine. So in case anyone breaks into my office, just look into my keyboard. So, all right. Well, thank you both, Roman Inquirer and J-Dub, for your feedback and helping us have this conversation. Let's move on to our first segment. This segment is sort of a follow-on from the last time the three of us were together back at the beginning of January. We did an episode where we talked about when old tech is better than new. So, when old versions of technology were better than what the new stuff that someone came up with and invented and gave us. And we had a bunch of fun, interesting things to say about that. And we had this second part of the conversation that turns out we didn't have time for because we spent so much time talking about the first. So I wanted to come back to that and talk about the worst examples of tech upgrades that were big failures. And I mean, some of this is just a little fun nostalgia, but some of it is actually, there's also some instructiveness in this and some information in this, which is to, keep in mind that advancements, progress is not always progress. It's not always good. And sometimes we leap to the next new thing and it's not necessarily going to work out for us. And so some of these will be some good examples of areas and places and things that we need to be careful of. And so why don't we get started with you, Father? What is your first example of a tech upgrade that was a big failure?
I mean, it's the biggest failure of technology of all time, I think. Dude, you're getting a Dell and it has Windows ME on it. Windows ME also, Dell happened to do their biggest advertising campaign ever right when they put the worst operating system Microsoft has made on all their computers. So this was Windows ME. Background of this was Microsoft was trying to come up with something between Windows 98 and Windows 2000, right? And It had to do with them switching over from the DOS file system. If you remember your old C prompts and your really old computers, Windows up to that point had ran with that as the underbody of it. And so they were trying to do that to move over to what's called the NT file base, which was what Windows XP Word was running on. Your current Windows now is still on NT, or a version of NT. And so they tried to like halfway it, and it didn't work. That was when you most often saw the window that popped up that told you that Windows has performed an illegal operation. Over and over and over again. It was just a bad operating system. That was also the blue screen of death you got quite often. That was kind of the origin of that joke, was Windows ME.
Right. Not the last place, but yeah.
Yeah. I added the second onto that, which was the precursor to Windows 7 was Windows Vista. Not as bad as Windows ME, but they didn't learn their lesson.
Yeah, it was another big underlying. They were doing the foundation of the structure, another big move forward they were trying to do, and it just didn't work out as well either. Like with that, yeah, I remember lots of crying from my Windows using friends with Vista. So.
And then the honorable mention, we're really picking on Microsoft, but they messed up a lot. Windows 8, the original, when they dropped the start menu, was bad.
Right. They had a backtrack on that one. Yeah, a lot of these Windows upgrades were not great. XP was a good version. 2000 wasn't bad. It was okay. It was really a sort of a little bit of an upgrade from XP. I don't have a lot of experience with the newer Windows versions. I've really kind of moved away from that when I stopped working for the church. But I was a skeptic of Windows 11. I've actually been a big fan. It's not my daily driver, but when I do use it, namely for gaming, but when I do use it, I know I went back on my whole Linux or gaming on Linux thing, but mainly on gaming is when I use my Windows machine. And I've been impressed with Windows 11. It's not bad. Cool. Awesome.
Yeah. I would say, Windows 11 was on my list just because, we had a PC that was upgraded to it before I could, jump over the room and go, no, don't click that button. and stuff. And I guess, I mean, it's fine, but it looks really goofy, to my Windows 10 sensibility, which I guess it looks more like a Mac, which is why it kind of looks like a toy to me. But the one thing I will say about Windows is that, as you move from version to version, in almost all the cases, your software that you have will still run on the new version, which you can't always say about a Macintosh when they do their OS upgrades.
Yeah.
It's only been a couple times when they did the 64-bit upgrade. That was really
I mean, I have a lot of audio software, and I'm always seeing it's like, don't upgrade, our plugins and stuff don't work on the new,
plugins,
Mountain Lion, or this, we have to, redo stuff for that. So
I've been impressed with, they have to do a little bit of an emulation layer between the old software that was running on the Intel chip versus the ARM chip. And I've been impressed that I don't even notice that it's doing anything. Actually, some of it runs better on the ARM chip than it was on the Intel chip, to be honest.
Yeah, I have to say about the thing about the audio software and those sorts of things. Some of that has to do with the fact that a lot of that software is originally written for Windows and has been ported, and the port isn't quite compatible completely, and so it breaks easy. And but I get it. It's part of being in the minority software position that Apple's in.
Victor, back to your one criticism on Windows 11. The other thing was that them suddenly arbitrarily deciding what hardware wasn't worthy of Windows 11. That could be listed on the upgrade failure things. That they limited their market purposefully.
But arbitrarily.
Arbitrarily just seems silly to me.
Yeah, like our laptop that has like a Dorito chip in it, it's not powerful at all. That was okay for Windows 11, but my i7 8-core 32 gigabyte thing isn't ready for Windows 11 somehow
because it's a Series 8 or something, right?
Yeah, whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So, well, let's round it out, and I'll criticize Microsoft too, and then we'll move on from there because my big one is the upgrade. This is a Mac software. The upgrade from Microsoft Word 6 for Mac to Word 6 for Mac from 5.1, but way back in 1994, Microsoft Word 5.1 was efficient. It was useful. It was fast. It ran on the Mac hardware of the time, which was not very fast, let's be honest. And then 6, and it looked like native Mac software. And then Microsoft Word 6 came along, and it was bloated. It was slow. It sucked up all the memory. And it looked like a port from Windows. It looked like a Windows app running on my Mac. And I remember back in those days when people were holding on to those Microsoft Word 5.1 3.5-inch floppy disks like they were gold. Like, you pry these from my golden hands. I am not going to Word 6. And it wasn't until Office 98 came out, I think it was, where a lot of people I know finally agreed to move on from 5.1. People were using Nicest Writer. They were using all these other word processors that were available then.
Word Perfect.
Perfect, right. Which was, there are still Word Perfect fans out there. Let's be clear. I know a few of them, including one particular Superior Court judge in Georgia that I know on Twitter.
90% of them work in Catholic parish offices.
Right. And Microsoft Word 6 was just one of the worst software upgrades among Mac software. And there's a lot of competition on that, but that was the one, when I was thinking about this, that's the one that stood out for me. So, Father, what's your next worst example of a tech upgrade?
E-textbooks. And this started... Really, they were starting to push it actually when I entered college in 2005, which there wasn't really the technology yet for it, right? You would have been reading it on a LCD screen laptop that your eyes would be hurting for studying from hours. There wasn't the iPad around yet. The Kindle hadn't even come out yet, right? And they were trying to already force this on people, and some colleges actually tried to adopt it. And we'll get into one of the reasons we think that's for. But then even when they pushed it with the iPad, right, you had you had what was that called? iTunes U, was that what it was?
iBooks Author.
But they tried to do ebooks with textbooks. I tried to teach from a few teacher editions and they were bad. Yeah. I'd be in the middle flipping pages, and I'd lose stuff. They just weren't ready for it. And then Dom, I think you had a comment on one of your big reasons there.
The big reason they wanted to go to e-textbooks even before they were available, the technology was ready for it, was because of the secondary market. When I was in college in the mid 90s, where did you get most of your textbooks? You went to the bookstore, the college bookstore, and you went right to the used books textbook section first. And if there were used ones available, you bought that. If there weren't used ones available, you'd buy the new one. But God forbid you buy the new one, because they were 10 times as expensive. And then, of course, the publisher would come out with a new edition that changed 3 words in chapter 7, and the professor said you have to get the new edition, and that was how they used to get around having to the used textbook market. And these books were, even 25 years ago, they were $100 for a 1 semester textbook. So they needed to make people get rid of the used textbook market. And so how do you do that? E-textbooks. Can't sell them, right? You can only buy them once, and they're licensed to you directly, and you can't sell it to the next person because they have copy protection and all that nonsense. And students didn't go for it. They found every way possible, and students are very clever about this.
Oh, they are.
To get around it. They found every analog hole, every way to, print out the texts and sell them to their friends, and go, 5 of them go in on one textbook and print out a chapter a week or whatever it was that they had to do, but they got around it. And I don't know where the e-textbook market is now. I'm kind of removed from it, but it's pretty bad.
They still charge you, or they
remember how Amazon got big originally. Like what Amazon started as, and people used it most as, was a used textbook market.
Well, later on, yes, it had a big used textbook marketplace for a time. My wife Melanie was a college professor, and she would have these books that she would have for her classes that she'd get from all the publishers. They'd want her to use their book, and we made some pretty good money reselling those on Amazon until they cut us off. So, but yeah,
they used to have the thing that Amazon would give you a box, and you could enter in all your textbooks, and they would just give you some amount for it, and you didn't have to sit around and wait to sell them, which was really great as a college student. That give me $5 for each textbook that I paid $100 for, and whatever, it's going to get me beer next night or whatever. Right.
Yeah. I think textbooks should be included in the cost. I mean, college has become so prohibitively expensive as it is. And so you're paying for the class, and then the class says you have to buy a $200 ebook or whatever, which the cost of sharing that ebook is like $0. Granted, there's research and stuff that goes into it, but the college should be covering that cost as part of the tuition.
Remember, when your professor writes the book, also, you're paying for his salary that he wrote that book under, and then you have to turn around and buy the book. And then the public university, right, your state's going to tax you on the book you bought too. So
pound of flesh. So yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, the e-textbooks, the big failure. Inevitably someday they'll fix it, and that's a lesson with a lot of these. Is someday the tech is ready, or it gets better, or is fixed. But this was when it just was the wrong time, or the wrong tech, or the wrong reasons, and we got to fix it later. At some point, do paper books go away? I don't know, but we'll see. There needs to be a better way to do e-textbooks than this. And I think maybe you're on something, Victor, is if the schools were paying for it, they wouldn't be $100 a textbook.
No.
Yep. And here's the other thing. With the paper book, when I have my kids reading, right, I have them reading Augustine's Confessions right now. They can't be sending out Snapchats while they're reading Augustine's Confessions on the paper book.
That's true. So my next one is the Sony mini disc audio format. Sony mini discs came out mid to late 90s, say maybe around the turn of 2000, somewhere around there. I don't know exactly the date. And they were a marvel. They were a technological marvel. They were, the next step up from audio cassettes and CDs. CDs you couldn't record on at the time. This was a portable, recordable digital format with interchangeable discs, and it was going to be the next big thing. It was going to replace CDs. You're going to buy your audio, your music on them.
I don't think that was ever Sony's intent. Sony was so invested into CDs. I think that they intended the mini disc as a niche product for creators. It was very useful to, people who were musicians and creating music at the time. If you were a singer, you had a band, you could create a digital copy on a portable audio recorder, hook a microphone in and, bring that to your sessions and stuff. I don't think that Sony ever intended it to be a mass market, media, just because they had their CD business. They had even their cassette business at the time. I think it was intended to be a niche product for audio recorders, but so it wasn't ever going to take when a CD costs, 35 cents or whatever to 40 cents to manufacture. I don't think it was ever intended to be a mass market consumer product. But, my mom was a singer and had one and recorded herself and stuff. At that time I was into 4-track recorders and other digital audio recorders, and I had CD burners and stuff. So, which were, huge things at the time. So that's just my counterpoint that, maybe not meant as a consumer, mass consumer product, perhaps.
So I'll grant you that maybe they weren't. I mean, I remember being hyped at the time and maybe it wasn't Sony doing the hyping, but the timing was bad because while mini discs stuck around for a long time in very niche areas, it was almost immediately followed by digital audio players like MP3 players, the early ones before the iPod even, but like the Diamond Rios and the Archons and these
creative,
creative, and it really just got supplanted by these cheap digital audio recorders, and it stuck around in journalism for a while. I know that there was a lot of those sorts of things, and in music production. But I know that Father Roderick, one of the founders of SQPN, his original podcasts were all in 2005.
Whoa.
Were all on a Sony mini disc. I remember that.
Wow.
So early days.
Yeah.
There's I'll put a link to an article in the show notes from Slate, which is about how Radiohead, the band, they recently, not in the last several years, not 20 years ago, they released all these old recordings because someone stole a bunch of 90s era mini discs with all this unreleased music on it, and so they just released the music to kind of make sure no one could make money off of it, basically. So the person who stole it reportedly demanded $150,000 ransom in exchange for releasing it.
Was he gonna upload it to Napster?
Right. Well, it wasn't that long ago. This was I think 2019, so it wasn't.
Oh, wow!
This was post Napster, and so instead the band released all 18 mini disc recordings on Bandcamp, which is a streaming music service that you can.
Very fine one. Yep.
Yes.
Do you remember the little toys, the clips?
Oh,
that
yeah.
had the little music, 20 seconds worth, that became kind of a thing. I get where you could, listen to 20 seconds of the most annoying 20 seconds of Britney Spears "Hit Me Baby One More Time" over and over again.
Wait. Yeah. The most annoying section, which one would that be? Oh, yeah.
Oh, baby. Yeah. No, when my older kids were growing up, their Video Now was this thing. It looked like a Sony Discman, but it had this little 1-inch, black and white or 4-color display on it, and it played a proprietary thing. And I actually bought the kit that if you had a CD burner, you could make your own Video Now discs. So I would make our home movies onto Video Now discs so that they could watch them on this incredibly defunct. If you've never seen a Video Now disc, look at a YouTube video of one, and you'll feel better that you have a smartphone and YouTube now.
the things we did
Yeah.
with that old technology. So, Victor, what's your next one you wanted to talk about?
Yeah, I think this is going to be like my old man yells at cloud moment, but I'm getting sick of like everything that has notifications on it. Like everything has notifications, like your phone, your car, your appliances.
Yeah.
And sometimes they tell you something like useful, but like, it used to be if you drive your car, you'd be like, oh, it's running kind of rough, or how long has it been since my last oil change? It's like, I'll think about that later. But now it's like, boom, like your car needs an oil change. Every time you turn on the car, boom, you need an oil change. And sometimes it's useful, like, if you have a tire that's going flat or something, it can notify you of that. But it just seems that there's a lot of noise and everything's competing for your attention nowadays. And I remember when technology was just it wasn't so all pervasive, and it was something that you could engage with and then, disengage with. But it just seems as we've upgraded, now it seems that notifications and, things popping up has just become part of the bargain, the expectation. And, do I need to, see all these different notifications? No, I don't.
It feels like everything's beeping at me all the time.
Yeah.
I don't know. My watch tells me when I need to pray morning prayer, daytime prayer, evening prayer, when I need to be going to bed.
Well, so my fridge, like I get it. My fridge will ding when the door gets left open too long. And you can turn it off when you're putting the groceries away. I get that. But then, that dings, and then the freezer dings, and then, the Echo, it will ding randomly. Hey, just thought you might want to buy some from Amazon right now. It's like, shush. And then, I agree. And then the smoke detectors will ding every once in a while. And yeah, everything just feels like, and you talk about the low tire thing in the car. Every time I get in my car, it's winter. The tires will be lower,
Yeah.
Like, can I adjust when it tells me? Because it's constantly telling me. We get notification fatigue and we stop paying attention. Just like car alarms. Do you know anyone who goes to look anymore when the car alarm is going off? Nobody does. It is the most useless technology now because everyone has car alarm fatigue because there's too many false alarms.
I still use it to find my car in a big parking lot. But,
Well, yeah, there's that.
But I'm appreciative of the low tire pressure notification because recently it probably saved me from a tire exploding on me that I was able to see that the tire went down to 15 pounds and immediately go, yeah, let's pull over.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I think that is a good notification that I'm willing to put up with the cold weather, weird stuff of it for when it does work and it helps me.
But that's the thing is, that's the time when you need it to work. But if it's constantly doing the boy who cried wolf every time you start your car, you might ignore it. And that's the danger is you ignore the time when it really matters because you have notification fatigue. No, I'm with Victor on this one. I'm old man yelling at a cloud saying, stop the notifications.
And on the same vein, so we can all be shaking our fist here. Apple's ruined their notifications. Like you don't get them anymore, even when you change the settings, and you get so many of them that you don't care about them, and then it's just a mess.
Right, it's either too few or too many. Yeah,
yeah,
I agree.
It used to be, when it was only doing notifications for my phone calls and my text, and I usually turned emails off, but it was nice. I knew I had a text message.
Yeah. I mean, I want to be notified by some things. It's just there's so many apps think that they need me to notify me of everything. Like CNN. Let me just give you a clue. Anything to do with the Kardashians is not breaking news. Okay? Or any celebrity. There's no celebrity news that's breaking news that needs to go on the screen of my phone. So I've turned off news notifications. Someone said, all those poor people in Turkey and Syria. I'm like, what happened? Because I didn't know, because I've turned off breaking news on my phone. Like it drives me crazy. Same thing with actually texting with my family. No one in my family listens to this podcast. With my siblings, I always hide the alerts on the message group because my family will start texting and that's like going back and forth, man. My phone is blowing up like for nothing. Stop.
Yeah.
Shush. It drives me crazy a little bit. You've hit a nerve here, Victor.
Yeah, I need to mute the conversation, but then I need to set a notification to remind me to unmute the conversation so I don't miss something late. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Oh man. All right. I guess let's see. Whose turn is it now? Oh, it's back to you, Father. What's your next one?
We're going to pick on Microsoft again.
Okay, good.
Internet Explorer to Edge. And we're not talking about when Edge decided to go Chromium in the latest version.
Again,
we're talking about we're talking about the Windows 8 version of Edge that didn't know if it was a tablet or a computer, wasn't compatible with Internet Explorer, was just a nightmare. They really didn't know what they wanted it to be. They didn't know if they wanted it to be a replacement of Edge or of Internet Explorer or not. And that hiccup made it Internet Explorer live way too long.
Well, that's the thing. Actually, that's I was going to say is Internet Explorer was a pretty bad browser to begin with.
It was horrible.
It had the virtue of being on many computers. But I mean, I remember back in the bad old days of programming websites where you had to set up separate versions for IE versus everybody else. And frankly, bad Microsoft browsers gave birth to Firefox and Chrome, really, Google Chrome. But the Edge kind of made Explorer live longer than it should have because they just didn't have a good replacement for it. Yeah, that's a good one.
In all honesty, with their marketing, somehow the new Edge caught on, but I think they should have probably just got rid of the Edge name and did something else.
Right, because it kept the same stigma. So I'm going to pick on Apple, and I'm going to say the Apple Watch Edition. Now, if you guys all remember when Apple Watch first came out, they had, like normal expensive versions, like, what was it? Steel and I don't know, plastic or whatever it was. No, they didn't have plastic, not Apple. But then they had the gold plated $10,000 Apple Watch that was for all the people that had more money than sense, meaning like celebrities and billionaires. And people would go out and they'd spend $10,000 on it. And then in a year or two, the watch was obsolete. It was time for a new series, new edition of the watch. And what a waste! $10,000. You couldn't upgrade it. You couldn't do anything with it. Just throw it away.
Well, if Kim Kardashian was wearing it, she could turn around and sell it for $50,000, right?
Right, because it was on Kim's sweaty wrist, I guess.
How much would that gold be worth now?
I know. What's the market for gold like?
Yeah, I don't think it's super hot at the moment, but I could be mistaken.
Not 10,000.
I mean, so the Apple Watch is a good technology, but this idea of the watch as high fashion accessory that in the luxury brand space was just a terrible idea on Apple's part. It was, I don't know what they were thinking, why they thought this was a good idea. I'd love to sit in, to read the 10, 20 years from now, the memoir that somebody writes about this terrible idea at Apple, why someone thought a $10,000 gold watch was a good idea. It just boggles me. Digital watch, digital watch. Yeah. If
they didn't have the supply, the supply chain set up to sell, millions of them, you would raise pricing, make it inaccessible to everyone, but they're early adopters or create manufactured scarcity or whatever, the perception of luxury or value there. But so from a marketing perspective, it may make sense, but still, just if anybody spends that amount of money on anything, you'd expect it to last. I would think for more than a year or two.
Right. But exactly. Yeah. It was such an ephemeral consumption. It wasn't, you weren't investing anything. You were just consuming. Yeah. It was conspicuous consumption.
Yeah, it's not like Samsung came out with like a $20,000 Blu-ray DVD player or something. It was solid gold, and you're like, oh, this is great.
Yeah. So Victor, why don't you take us to the last one here, and then we'll move on to the rest of the show.
I'm pretty forgiving when it comes to tech, and stuff. So I really don't have one. I've had like personal upgrades. Like I had a bad iPhone upgrade that, when I would whenever I would go to plug it in, it would suddenly like turn into like, it would get very, very, very hot. And then, and then all this other stuff. And I got concerned by that. So I was like, maybe I'll give this Android thing a try at that point. And that's the thing too, is like, I'm pretty forgiving up to a point with technology, but if you like flip like the switch, if you like go just one step too far, I'll like abandon your product forever and just like go to your competitors and stuff. So that was what got me off Apple and onto Android at that point. But yeah, there's those moments are very, very rare.
Okay. Very good.
I have one last one on
Okay.
the early VoIP was my last one of just before the internet's bandwidth was ready for VoIP. And so 2005, 2006, they were trying to push VoIP and it didn't work.
That stands for voice over IP
or
internet-enabled phone calls using your internet connection or IP protocols rather than a landline, good old,
which
copper.
is pretty standard now for most landlines.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of telephone companies are doing it over your modems now because the bandwidth of the internet can handle it. In 2005, you knew someone was calling you from a VoIP because it sounded like
it sounded terrible.
A tin can.
Yeah.
It was bad.
Yeah, I was an early adopter with Vonage. When I was first married, and we had a Vonage number. I got it for a business reason, and it was primitive. It was getting better. I had pretty good bandwidth where I was, but it's not like it is today where we can do what we're doing now, which is streaming a 3-way video call at 1080p or whatever it is. It's much better now. I mean, even doing this compared to 4 years ago when we were doing these over Skype. And Skyping was a verb for sounding like a Cylon and, dropping, frames and the sound going out and all that sort of stuff. It's much more rock solid these days.
Well, I hate to praise COVID, but I think the advancement in a lot of the video technology happened because people started using it. You've seen the quality since 2020 just immensely better.
Yep, that's true.
So we end on a note where we have an example of something that's better than it was.
Yes, all due to a global pandemic.
Good night, everybody.
All right, before we move on to our headlines, I want to take a moment to thank our patrons who make it possible for us to create the Secrets of Tech, including Michael C., Joseph O., Keith M., Wojciech D., and William M. Their generous tax-deductible donations at sqpn.com/give make it possible for us to continue the Secrets of Technology and all the shows at StarQuest. And you can join them by visiting sqpn.com/give. So, Victor, I saved this one for you. I've had this headline hanging around for a while because you said you wanted to talk about this. The headline is, Mysterious Antennas Are Appearing in Utah's Hills and Officials Are Stumped. So the story is that these antenna installations, that's an antenna, a computer box, a solar panel, in these inaccessible locations, this says hills, like these are, well, in the East, we call them mountains, in these installations that they said were drilled into solid rock. These are not ephemeral fly-by-night, someone's dropped them there sorts of things. And there's a lot of them. And they're having to go up and pull them down as they find them because they're on public lands and they don't have permission. And no one knows what they're for or what they're doing. Victor, you got a theory?
Yeah. So at first I thought they were actually like some people doing something kind of cool, like maybe setting up their own mesh network in case there's like a grid down situation. They can still, text their family in a neighboring town or call them and stuff. But reading the articles, and they mentioned basically that you can use these sorts of antennas and solar panels and stuff to mine like helium, which is a type of cryptocurrency. I don't understand exactly how it works, but this is the way you do it. And so I think it might just be people trying to make a buck or two, which isn't as cool, but you have to admire their dedication to it. What's kind of strange too is that there hasn't been, this story ran initially in early January, but I was looking around and I haven't been able to find like an update to the story, in the next month if they zeroed in. So I think the explanation that people are settling on is that it's some sort of cryptocurrency mining type situation, rather than any sort of end times prepper, second internet type thing, which would be kind of cool too.
Which is weird because in the story they say they can't be making enough money like on this crypto, mining this crypto, given how much each of these installations has to cost. It's kind of wild.
Hold on, you're assuming that the crypto miners are logical thinkers.
Yeah.
Well, there's that. I think it might be, I don't know, some sort of criminal enterprise thing. I don't know. It's like.
Yeah, I mean the last week where we have balloons like flying overhead and stuff too. Now, I mean, it could be anything. Anybody could be leaving these things up there, right?
It is Utah, and we know that Skinwalker Ranch is in Utah. So maybe
that's right.
As Jimmy Aiken and I always say, it's always aliens
or transdimensionals,
transdimensional beings.
Could be Elon Musk.
It could be Elon also at work. It's a Twitter thing. So. Yeah, I mean, if anybody's got any good theories, I'd love to hear them because this is a stumper. This is a weird one. So let's move on to our next headline, which is related to our feedback this week, which is Bitwarden password manager spoofed. And so what's really going on here is it's not that Bitwarden itself has been breached at all. It's that criminals are it's nothing new. They're setting up fake websites that look like the Bitwarden site or potentially other password manager sites at a time when a lot of people are looking to move to another password manager. And so they're trying to trick people into downloading their software, which they presumably have a backdoor into so they can steal all your passwords instead of the real thing. So what do you guys think of this? Is this really a Bitwarden problem or is this just an internet problem?
They named it Bitward, I think, was what happened. So it was both
Whitboard.
an internet problem and both a person problem, right?
Yeah.
The classic thing that the problem with your computer is sitting between the computer and the chair, right?
Right.
And so it's both an education problem and an internet problem. I don't think you can blame Bitwarden for being spoofed, though.
Right.
They're still like, I'm not any less secure from using Bitwarden because this happened. And so that's why I don't blame Bitwarden, right? My passwords are safe even though this happened. So you can't put the blame on them.
Yeah. At work, this is a huge problem for any large company, but at work they'll send, emails every month or two that say, hey, you have a package waiting, or, click here for your gift card or something, and it's the the security team within the company is basically, and if you click on it, you have to take some online training. But if you report it, you get a nice little congratulations, job well done note from our cybersecurity. No, you don't. No, and you don't get a package either.
Congratulations, you sniffed out our test. Here's a gift card. Click. Ha ha! I got you now.
Yeah, our IT office just emails me back like, oh, I'm shocked the techie priest figured us out.
Yeah.
That's good. So there's another headline too about password managers. KeePass, which is the open source one. There's been a claim that they have a vulnerability in their open source password manager, but there's some dispute over it. The big difference between KeePass and others is that KeePass stores the database of passwords locally, not in the cloud. So they're not, the vault is not at risk of cloud breach. But so this questions about whether the master password is vulnerable or not. But it's the sort of thing that it's open source. People are going to bang on it. They're going to find the vulnerabilities. They're going to fix them and they'll move on. So even if there is a vulnerability, it will be repaired pretty quickly. So, and then our last one is kind of a weird one. Is a company called 10 Minds, which is based in Korea, I guess, has a pillow that detects snoring and automatically adjusts the sleeper's head to stop the snoring. And it's one of these memory foam pillows. And there's a Bluetooth connected device that listens to you as you sleep. And when it hears the snoring, it will inflate a bladder inside the pillow to tilt your head, and it tilts your head enough that you will open up the airways and stop the snoring. Now, a couple things about this. One, you gotta go to the Motion Pillow website and look at the website. It is a trip. It is and the video is really funny. But it's a, I don't know, the bottom line too. This pillow costs $378. Would you pay $378? My wife would pay $378 to stop me from snoring. But would you pay $378 for a pillow?
Would Alexa do anything for me with it?
I don't think so.
No.
Get a notification in the morning.
Yeah.
I see you were snoring last night.
Well,
you might want to go to Alexa, Amazon's latest sale.
Well, yeah, Father, I don't think this is not a product for you, I guess. This is not for someone who doesn't have someone who sleeps in the same room with you. No one's going to hear you snoring and complain, I guess. Victor, how about you?
Benefits of celibacy.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know. See, that's the thing too, is like you have a problem and it's probably worth at least, $400 for you to solve it. But if you're not sure this is going to solve it,
yes,
or like solve it permanently, you probably wouldn't spend the money on it. Like, how long does an inflatable, like Bluetooth enabled pillow last?
Probably longer than that $10,000 Apple Watch.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, it's a good idea. I just remember, like, obviously there are the Breathe Right strips that some people can wear. I remember that I don't know if it was like a Hemmecker, Schlemmecker, catalog or whatever, those weird
Shopper Image.
Yeah. I remember this is what, when I was growing up, there was a shirt that they were selling and it had like, in the back of the shirt, there was like this pocket sewn in and there was like, I don't know, some sort of plastic mass or something in there. And so that if you were sleeping and rolled over on your back, it would be very uncomfortable because whatever was in this nightshirt would be poking into your back and that would cause you to roll over onto your side and stop snoring. And, so that's maybe a low tech, option too, is just, so something very uncomfortable into the back of your shirt. And
I'm sure I have some millennial parishioners who will tell you an essential oil that will solve that problem.
Oh yeah, just put a diffuser in your
yes.
But yeah. I mean there's probably lots of other things you can do, like is the air moist enough,
The part of the problem, there is one flaw in this, is that it only works with people who are back or side sleepers. This does not help. If you are a stomach sleeper, as I am, actually I'm a roller, I'm all over. But if you at all sleep on your stomach, you can't use this pillow. This is not designed for that. It's one of those contoured memory foam pillows, which I hate. You can't actually get it on Amazon right now. It's just currently unavailable.
Yeah.
We don't know if it'll be back in stock. Although Motion Pillow did win a CES Innovation Award this year, so they were at CES in 2023. So I don't know what the deal is.
The tech that doesn't exist conference.
Yes. So in 2022 and they've been around a while. They start like 2019. I think they were selling it. So I don't know what the deal is with them. Maybe they have some supply chain problems. So if you go to their website, see if you can get a hold of them, see if you really want it. I'll put a link to the website in the show notes, because like I said, it's a hoot to look at.
Yeah, reviews on Amazon are mixed. Some people say it works. One just the title says, "I am wide awake in a quiet room and it moving my head." So if you've ever wanted to lie awake in a quiet room and have a pillow move your head around from side to side, this might be the
I'm sure there's a really entertaining review on Amazon somewhere too.
Yeah, my wife's a very light sleeper. This would wake her too. I think that's another person it wouldn't work for if you're a light sleeper.
Yeah, I'm hoping that doesn't sound like, an air compressor like firing up, in the middle of the
night. Oh man. All right, let's enough of that silliness. Let us move on to our picks of the week. And Father, why don't you go first with your pick?
Okay, so my pick of the week, if you remember your older computers, you'd have what was called a PC badge, right? So on these, it would be like, it would tell you what version of Windows, right? So you knew that Windows ME was running on your Dell. or you would have the brand name of the computer. Sometimes you'd have the graphics card or the sound card that was inside of it. And this was one of those classic things of retro computers. And as I've mentioned before, I collect retro computers, and these are one of the things that goes bad. So my pick is I have this website that actually remakes and sells those PC badges, and it's called Geek and Spiel. They make them really well. They're domed. They make the domed ones and the flat badges. The one I most recently got wasn't a retro badge, but a custom badge. My custom computer, I have fittingly named HAL, which if you know your 2001 Space Odyssey, you get the joke there. And so this has the red eye of HAL with the speaker and the label on it. So the front of my computer, if you go on our Discord, I think I posted it on there. The front of my computer looks like HAL now because I was able to get the badges from that. And they're an affordable site, like $2.99, $3.99 for these stickers. I order my Windows and my Linux sticker. I have the classic Windows 3.1 sticker for my brand new computer that has Windows 11 on it, just because I like the Windows 3.1 sticker.
Yeah.
So good site if you have some old computers you want to make look a little nicer.
I kind of want to put one of these Intel Inside Pentium stickers on my Mac Studio. That would be kind of...
I do like how they have a lot of Y2K stickers, like make sure to turn off your PC, or like, safe from Y2K, the stuff that we had back around that time. Yeah.
Yeah.
I do have one of those back on my shelf, the Y2K sticker.
Yeah.
Oh man. Egghead software. Oh
yeah.
Wow.
It has a lot of your niche ones too. That
Cyberdyne, Skynet. Yeah.
It's a trip down memory lane.
Turtle Beach.
The guy who runs it, really friendly guy. So
I want a Beagle Brothers software sticker. I don't know if anybody remembers that. That is a deep cut.
He does really good social media interaction. So when guys who do their custom able to interact with him and post the pictures after you do it, and does really good interaction and stuff. So
cool.
Just fun company too, that he doesn't just sell the product, but interacts with his customers after.
Nice. Very good.
I'll have to see if they have like Silicon Graphics, logos, because I always wanted a Silicon Graphics workstation back in the day, and if I could just get a sticker and put it on it.
Yeah, really. All right, Victor, what's your pick this week?
Yeah, so I've been, doing a lot of like 3D printing and a lot of the projects and stuff. I'm working on a couple of clocks that use microcontrollers that are connected to the internet to set the time from over the internet and stuff. But a lot of it and a lot of the models and action figures and stuff that I'm printing and putting together relies on parts that need to be glued together. And so the one thing that I do have a lot of experience with is CA glue, or cyanoacrylic adhesive glue, which is basically what super glue and crazy glue is, only you can buy them off Amazon in larger quantities. Larger is not always more desirable, because the stuff does, after a couple of months, tend to harden up just from the exposure to the air and stuff. So, but even as fast as this stuff sets, which with the very thin stuff can be almost instantaneously, the thicker stuff a few seconds, like maybe 15-20 seconds, it's enough time for it to either get on my fingers or for the parts to move. And so I was watching, Adam Savage's from, Mythbusters, and he makes a lot of props, his YouTube channel. And he was talking about these accelerators that are basically chemicals that you kind of mist over where the parts that you've glued together, and it sets up instantly. And so I've been trying this recently, and yeah, it really does work. You when you have the two parts glued together, what usually you'd have to like hold for 20 or 30 seconds, you just a couple spritzes near it, and the parts are instantly bonded together. So if you do any sort of crafting, if you're building anything, making anything, and have been using a lot of CA glue, but haven't tried any accelerators, with the right eye protection and ventilation, they really do work.
Awesome. Very good. So my pick is a nice little thing I found that actually has helped my wife and I a lot, because we both have AirPods Pro, and as you know, the cases they look exactly alike, and one of the problems that we've run into often is, while the cases you can do like a kind of Find My on the original AirPods Pro, they don't have the Find My feature like the AirPods Pro 2. We've got the original ones, and so finding them when you lose them, and you will lose them, it can be problematic. So I got air tags for each one, and found this case by Alago, who I really like. They do these fun little devices to help you with your Apple stuff. One of the things I have is a Apple Watch charger that looks like an original iMac that I use to charge my watch at night, which is really nice. And the screen of the watch looks like the screen of the iMac. It's a previous pick I have done, but this is a little $11.99 case, and it's supposed to look a little bit like a camera, and where the AirTag goes is the lens. And so the AirTag kind of sits on the front of the case, exposed. But I got the monograms on the AirTag. So mine says Dom. I'm holding it up for the guys on the camera.
Oh, yeah.
It says Dom. And, Melanie's says Mel. And so that we can always know whose iPods are whose, and for the case. So we can find them, they're protected, and we can identify which is which. And so that's been really a nice little feature. And the case is $12, so it protects the AirPods and that sort of stuff. So it's a nice little feature. All right, so that does it for us for this time. We would love to get your feedback. Anything we talked about in our discussion, you can let us know by commenting on the show at sqpn.com/technology, or the StarQuest Facebook page, facebook.com/StarQuestMedia. Send an email to technology@sqpn.com, or visit the StarQuest Discord community at sqpn.com/Discord. You'll find links from our discussion and picks of the week on our show notes at starquest.fm/TEC199, Tech 199. Remember to like each episode of Secrets of Tech on Facebook, retweet them on Twitter, where we're at SQPN, and leave us comments wherever you find us. We love to hear from you. We'd like to thank James for research assistance in this episode, and until next time, Father Joseph's son, thank you for joining me and sharing the secrets of technology.
Hey, look, a balloon.
And Victor Lambs, thank you as well.
Thanks, Dom.
And once again, I'm Dom Bettinelli. Thank you for listening to the Secrets of Technology on StarQuest.